It is the Bobby Moe Show. Good day to you. I'm Chris Shovlin, the play-by-play voice of Robert Morris University football and basketball. And the Bobby Moe Show today will feature Dr. Carol Schoenecker. She's the head rowing coach here at Robert Morris University. We'll talk to her coming up. But a reminder, the Bobby Moe Show today is brought to you by Dollar Energy Fund. Back with Dr. Schoenecker coming up. This winter, many families in our area are struggling to make ends meet and keep their homes warm. You can make a difference by making a donation to Dollar Energy Fund. Your contribution will be matched dollar for dollar by Dollar Energy Fund's utility partners, and 100% of all donations will be used to help local families maintain or restore basic utility services. No one should have to face a Pittsburgh winter in the cold. Help spread the warmth to your neighbors in need and donate today at dollarenergy.org. The Bobby Moe Show is brought to you by Dollar Energy Fund. Dollar Energy Fund helping our neighbors in need maintain basic utility service since 1983. Visit dollarenergy.org or text WARM, that's the word WARM, W-A-R-M, to 53555. That's WARM to 53555. Speaking of warm, it hasn't been lately. We all know that. And we're going to talk about an outdoor sport today with Carol Schoenecker, who was promoted to head coach of the RMU rowing program back in 2020, right at the height of a pandemic. First of all, Carol, thanks for being here on the Bobby Moe Show today. And I realize this weather is not conducive to practicing outdoors at all, particularly on the rivers.
Thanks for having me. No, not quite the weather we're looking for. A little bit of ice floating down the Ohio right now.
I mean, it's not like the Titanic or anything with a big iceberg coming down. But the thing is, the ice in the river. I mean, I realize your squad trains year round, but how do you do it like when the weather's like this right now?
We have an indoor training season over the winter, so we have an erg room at the Island Sports Center. Okay. So indoor rowing machines. I know people have seen it with CrossFit now. They're becoming more popular where people just do indoor rowing. So we do a lot of that in cross training and strength and conditioning. And we're hoping, fingers crossed, that we can get back on the water the last week of February.
Okay, that's even early too.
Still going to be pretty cold.
Yeah,
but hoping
you might
the
see
river
some ice.
Flood.
Some ice might be floating by too. The indoor training. I mean, does it really replicate what you do outdoors in the water?
It does to a certain extent. I mean, you can't really replicate the teamwork aspect of rowing in a boat with other people. You kind of can. We have things called sliders where you can actually connect the indoor rowing machines together and work on the timing and pieces. But mostly, it's more of a strength, time-based benchmarking opportunity. So if you did like a time trial in track and ran a 400, we use 2,000 meters or 6,000 meters as our benchmarks. So it's a good opportunity to start seeing levels of fitness and being able to track that.
I guess rowing is attractive to young people who are from Pittsburgh because we do have the three rivers and relatively no wake on those rivers. How did you get involved in it, being from Pittsburgh?
I went to Fox Chapel High School, so I'm local,
Sure.
and stumbled into it. Not going to lie, I was not an athlete before I started rowing. I was actually more into orchestra. I'm a violinist by trade.
Oh.
Rowing is a really rhythmic sport. So two of my best friends conned me into trying it out our freshman year of high school because Fox Chapel has their own team, and then I ended up loving it and stayed with it.
That's pretty cool. So you're a violinist. I run a performing arts center, which makes no sense because I have no talent, but you know, you can find a place in anywhere, literally in any sport or in any field.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah.
It is.
I didn't know that.
It really is. I mean, that's what I do for a real job. Anyway, let's talk about your team. And I realize, again, you were just named head coach in 2020, and the 2020-21 campaign was your first one here. Talk about getting through the COVID situation. I know it seems like I ask that question to the coaches almost every week, but, you know, we're all living it right now.
I think it was interesting for me because I didn't know what we didn't have, or I didn't know what I didn't know, I guess you could say, because I didn't have a head coaching season where we weren't, in a pandemic, but I also took over from Nelly Stahora, who we worked really closely together and shared a lot of responsibilities. So it was such a collaborative experience to begin with that nothing really changed other than just having to be a little bit more mindful about mental health and how safe we're being and, culture building when we couldn't be together. Because as a team sport, a lot of people join rowing because of the connection they have to each other. And when you can't have that connection, it was really tricky, especially for the freshmen who came in and couldn't actually hang out with their teammates or meet people in the same fashion as you normally would.
That's pretty interesting. You mentioned Nelly Stahora, who was the coach prior to your becoming head coach, and there was a moment some years ago when you had breakfast with her that something snapped. And let's talk about that a little bit.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, I've had an interesting background. So I've done a little bit of everything, like you've said, and I bounce around a lot. But I was a teacher in rural Louisiana, teaching elementary school, and had interviewed with Nelly, I think like 6 or 7 times, because they were looking for someone to come in right away. And this was like October, and I obviously had to finish out the school year. And they didn't hire anyone, so we had another interview. And then they didn't hire anyone, so we had another interview, and we kind of kept in touch. And then over that summer, when I moved back to Pittsburgh, we were at Eggs and Ed, hanging out on the back porch.
Right up the street.
Yeah, right up the street, hanging out on the back porch. And we ended up having this huge discussion about why rowing was important to both of us. Nellie walked on to the rowing program here at Robert Morris, and it changed her life, obviously. And rowing changed my life from a very young age and also got me to college as a first-generation college student. So I think it gave us a huge opportunity to kind of create an unconventional Division I rowing program that could focus on life skills in addition to just making boats go fast.
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Now, I know you have a Robert Morris connection because your sister, who used to be my boss when it came to producing our television broadcast, and now Dylan Thompson does that. He's the producer of our Bobby Moe show. But your sister Becky was here for a long time. Was that the connection originally with Robert Morris?
I think it's interesting because that was the connection initially. So I had never even seen campus, even though I was local, until Becky started playing soccer here. And I came to her games. And I was like, I never knew this place was up here. I can't believe I've never seen it. It's so cool. And while I was in Louisiana teaching, she sent me a text message and was like, hey, the assistant coaching position's open. You know, I at the time was going to go do a PhD program at Temple in urban education, but had missed rowing and was like, I actually think this is a different way to get exactly what I want in terms of, I mean, we're educators as coaches. You just have a little bit more flexibility to design your own program. And so I applied, and it all worked out really well. So I owe Becky a lot.
I do too, to be quite honest with you. I hope she's doing well where she is right now. You got your degree, your Bachelor of Arts degree from Bucknell, and then a master's from Duquesne, and then you became Duquesne's assistant rowing coach. Is that true?
Yes. I was Duquesne's assistant rowing coach for 3 years. 2 of those years I was getting my master's. And I was initially going to be a graduate assistant coach, but I ended up getting paid more by the department, so I went for that. And mostly was a volunteer coach. I was like, I still want to do this. And then stayed for a 3rd year while I worked in the Homewood Children's Village, a nonprofit in education in Pittsburgh Public Schools. And then recently, last May, I finished my doctorate in education. So
congratulations.
Also from Duquesne. But thanks.
I should call you Dr. Shonecker then. I'm sorry. Let's talk about your experience in England as well. You were in a competition there, right?
Yeah. First time I got to leave the country. My freshman year of college at Bucknell, I was really fortunate enough to make the first 8. And that year they took the first 8 and second 8 to the Henley Regatta in England. So first time across seas. It was really great. We spent 2 weeks there, traveled around, and I actually rode through the locks and dams along the English countryside up into Reading. It was wild.
Had to be a great experience, no doubt about it. Now, let's go back to Bucknell. I know that you had some really big success, some great years at Bucknell. And where did you guys compete? Right on the Susquehanna?
Yeah, we were right on the Susquehanna, the Shamokin Dam area, which is a really great team name, I guess. Shamokin Dam's pretty great. Yeah, we competed on the Susquehanna, close to Philadelphia, close to New York. I mean, Bucknell's like 3 hours from everything. Right. So we were able to do a lot of day trips to different places.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Let's talk about the rivers here in Pittsburgh. And I know that all of the rowing teams are out there on the rivers in Pittsburgh. What's the experience like here in Pittsburgh? Is it a good spot for you? Have you been on smoother waters? Is it a good place to compete?
I mean, I'm obviously biased being from Pittsburgh,
Sure.
But I'm drawn to the rivers here because I think it gives you a lot of insight into why people settled in Pittsburgh to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, especially up and down the Ohio, the further down you get, you see kind of the skeletons of the old mills and the industrial history of the city, and I think that's a really unique perspective and things that people don't normally get to see. So I love it here. I will say that during the summer, the power boaters are a little bit aggressive, especially if you're trying to row downtown. I also coach at Three Rivers rowing.
Sure.
So by the time you get down to PNC Park and Heinz Field, you get a lot of pleasure boat traffic, so it gets a little choppy. But I think it's my favorite place to row, and we're not short of water, so we can go for miles.
That's pretty cool. So Fox Chapel was a pretty good launch pad for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Robert Morris, let's talk about your team right now. What's up? I mean, I realize you're training indoors right now, but let's talk about the upcoming season.
Well, I'm pretty excited about the upcoming season. Rowing is fun because we don't have to necessarily set our schedule really far in advance. And it's such a small community that we end up just calling up other coaches and being like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Do you want to practice together and do different kinds of pieces? So we do traditional regattas. So we're going to a couple of larger ones, mostly in Philadelphia. We're going to the Kerr Cup in April. We'll be at Occoquan Sprints in Fairfax, Virginia. George Mason hosts that one. So those are the larger regattas. And then we get to do one-on-one duels do a lot with Duquesne and WVU because they're so close to us. And we go back and forth and kind of share who's at what body of water. WVU is fun because they're on the Monongahela, so it's still like an extension of where we already row.
And it's the same water, it's just further down.
Yeah, exactly. We go see Canisius, who's obviously in our conference, which is really great. We see them a lot because Buffalo's an easy day trip. So other than that, we kind of get to call up people and be like, hey, do you want to do like 3-minute pieces today? And I love that style too, because in terms of growth, we're out on the water with our athletes while they're racing other crews, and we get to talk to them and reflect and bounce back ideas, which is something during a normal regatta coaches don't get to do. We kind of just shove them off the dock and hope that they come back. Yeah. So
I know there was a competition here in Pittsburgh called the Head of the Ohio. Is that still around?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we went this past fall and it was fantastic. It's a really great way to open up our season.
How many different universities are involved?
It was bigger this year than it had been. There was kind of a lull, obviously, during the pandemic. So I think there were 6 or 7 universities. Yeah. And then we're in the open event. So then you get clubs who enter their own events as well. Sure. So mostly it was us and Duquesne, and we battled it out. R8 came in second, Duquesne came in first, and then R4 came in first, and their 4 came in second. So it was a nice back-and-forth battle. It
is such a cool sport. There's no doubt about it. Dr. Carol Schoenecker, thank you so much for being on the Bobby Mo Show today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll come back and check the scoreboard and the schedule ahead right here on the Bobby Mo Show.
This winter, many families in our area are struggling to make ends meet and keep their homes warm. You can make a difference by making a donation to Dollar Energy Fund. Your contribution will be matched dollar for dollar by Dollar Energy Fund's utility partners, and 100% of all donations will be used to help local families maintain or restore basic utility services. No one should have to face a Pittsburgh winter in the cold. Help spread the warmth to your neighbors in need and donate today at dollarenergy.org.
Once again, I want to say thanks to Dr. Carol Schoenecker, the head rowing coach here at Robert Morris University, for joining me on today's edition of the Bobby Mo Show. Let's take a look at what's happened here on campus sports-wise and the schedule ahead. First of all, this coming Friday and Saturday, women's track will be at the Youngstown State University National Mid-Major Invitational. That's both Friday and Saturday for women's track. Men's basketball this past weekend, the guys fell twice. Once at Purdue Fort Wayne and on Sunday at Cleveland State. Now tonight they'll host the Milwaukee Panthers at 7 o'clock at the UPMC Events Center. We'll have that game for you on the audio side on the RMU Game Day app right here, but you'll also be able to watch the game on ESPN Plus and also on regional television, 22 The Point here in Pittsburgh and on MeTV Ohio Valley in the Steubenville and Wheeling markets in Ohio and West Virginia. Then on Saturday, the Colonials will host Green Bay. The Phoenix come in. That'll be a 7 o'clock tip. We'll be on the app for that one and also on ESPN Plus. As far as women's basketball is concerned, they lost to Youngstown State. As a matter of fact, it was a home set, so they dropped both games. On Friday, they'll take on Oakland. That'll be a 7 o'clock tip. And then Sunday, they host Detroit Mercy at 1 o'clock. Both of those games will be on ESPN Plus. That'll do it for the Bobby Mo Show this week. Don't forget to support Dollar Energy Fund today and help your neighbors in need stay warm this winter. Find out how a small contribution can score big with those in need. Visit dollarenergyfund.org or text WARM to 53555. I'm Chris Shovlin. Talk to you next time.